Thank you for the opportunity to do this. Just to jump into it right away, what I want to do is just start off with the question that we're going to be dealing with at the end, and tell you at the beginning is that first of all, Hotzos Begodim is probably today's day and age is something that people do not have any, that they're just not on their radar screen, because most people, I will say most people, because most people don't live in Manhattan, although most people in Manhattan will think that they are the most people. Most people today, Baruch Hashem, live in
I didn't
areas.
hear that.
most people live in areas where they're Erevin. And so it's not on the radar screen in terms of what they're allowed to carry, what they're not allowed to carry. It usually becomes problematic, and they usually first have to start thinking about it when they're first going away on vacation. They're going to places where there's no Erev. They don't know what to do. And it's total hefkeris, because everybody makes up their own mind as to what they think is the appropriate thing to do and not the appropriate thing to do. People who will be in Brooklyn or Manhattan, and they'll be there for Simcha. What do we do now? So this is it's important to be familiar with what these rules are, and what I would like to do is present at least in a small period of time that I have. We're not going to be able to go through all of Shin Aleph and Shin Gimel, because there are two very large simanim that deal with these issues, but at least some sort of a rule of thumb and how to deal with most issues. We're not going to deal, as you heard before, we're not going to be able to deal with every single issue, but by the time we're done, hopefully a rule of thumb concept of how you should approach the issue. The question that I want to talk about, though, at the end of the day, is you're in a place where there's no Erev and it's pouring rain, and you don't have a raincoat. And you don't have a raincoat, you don't have a Shena coat. So what many times what they do is you're in a place where there are large plastic bags. So before Shabbos, they'll put a hole into this large plastic bag, stick it over their head, and walk out with it. In a place where there's an Erev, that's not a problem. In a place where there isn't an Erev, the question is, why should that be mutter? It's maybe protecting you from the rain, but are you wearing a beged? You're wearing a garbage bag. Is that acceptable? Or another way that people protect themselves is by taking sometimes you have plastic tablecloths. They wrap themselves in plastic tablecloths and go out that way. And then the Bachrim are always putting the plastic garbage bags on their hats and going out with that. So even if they would wear it in a way where it covered their head, because you saw already some of the chuvas, that if you're going to say that covering the hat is not good enough, but they cover it more than the hat, and they're covering themselves too, and they're protecting themselves. But is a plastic bag considered a hat that you should be able to go out with it on Shabbos? So the first thing we have to decide is, what exactly is the heter of going out with clothes at all? Obviously it's mutter. The question is, why is it mutter? What difference does it make if I put a jacket on, or if I wear a backpack and put my arms through it and I'm wearing it on my back? How does the jacket become mutter and the backpack be usher? I'm doing the very same thing. I'm wearing a necklace around my neck. Does it make a difference if a woman wears a necklace around her neck that has a tachshit that's a nice item, or she's wearing her glasses around her neck and she walks out with her glasses around her neck? We see that, you'll see that often. People will do that. People will wear their greeting glasses around their neck. They'll sometimes even wear their regular glasses around their neck because they're wearing. Ask anybody, they're wearing. I know as a child, there was a Baal Tshuva came to my father's shul. The first time he came, it was a rainy day. He came with an umbrella. So my father asked him about it, because he considered himself Shabbos. So he told him, my father, he's wearing it on his arm. So he's wearing it, so therefore it's okay. And another incident, I was present where someone needed the key to get into a house. So the people took the key and they put a pin around. They put a safety pin, and they pinned it inside the coat. So they're wearing it now. Now it's okay. So now it's mutter. You're allowed to go and wear it that way. So people are totally at a loss as to what is acceptable and what's not. So at the get-go, one could say, well, anything that's called clothes is mutter, and anything that's not called clothes is not mutter. It's very difficult to deal with. How you need a working definition of such a thing. So I will tell you that in the same Dibros Moshe Chelik base, actually in Siman Mem Dalid, dealing with a totally different concept we won't go into now, the Shiva gives 3 different svaros to differentiate between a masa and clothing. Well, I'm going to deal with only one. The one that I feel is the workable one that fits into most of the halachos of Shulchan Aruch and fits in exactly, and you can categorize it and fit it into the areas of Shulchan Aruch, and know that at least starting out with Min HaTorah, we're going to be talking about something that's not an Issa D'Oraisa. We'll talk about the Isurei D'Rabbanan subsequently, but let's analyze, try to categorize things in an organized fashion, so there's not just a lot of different ideas flying all over the place, which I think for most, myself included initially, was just a lot of ideas. This is okay, this is not okay, this is a beged, this is not a beged. How are we going to define? We need a definition, a working definition. And that's what I wanted to do with the Mishnah. Hamotzi pochus mikashir b'kli is poter afal kli. That's it's a standard concept of bittul that we learn in Kol Torah Kula. Bittul is not just by Shabbos. Bittul is if you're making a bracha. There's also din in bittul. It's an ikar and tafel. So if you're eating a potato, so you make a bar piadama. If you're just going to be eating salt, you're going to make a shahakol. If you're just going to be eating ketchup, you're going to make a shahakol. If you're going to put the ketchup or the salt on the potato, you're only going to make a bar piadama because you have an ikar and you have a tafel. What makes one the ikar, one the tafel? Well, how do we define that? Why is that an ikar tafel? That's not an easy sugya either. No question about it, but it has definitions. And the definition of it is, so we have here in the Mishnah says, motzi posm kashir b'kli is poter alav kli, and hamotzi chai b'mita is poter afal hamita.
Shulzakar Frankel, we can put the Marmaklimus in the screen to help Dailam. Is that okay with you?
That's fine with me, please.
Okay, do as you wish.
So we're dealing with the Mishnah on Tzadi Gimel Amud Beis. I don't.
Yeah, we have everything.
Okay, so just let me know if there's a change. So you have a motzi ochem posm mikashir b'kli poter afal kli, and shakli tfeililo. And then you have esachai b'mita poter ala mita shamita tefillo. So Gemara will explain later on. The Gemara says that that chai nosi esatzmos, you poter on the chai. The mito, how can you be poter on the mito? You have a large jar and you take pochus mikashir of kli in the jar, and you're going to be poter even on the kli, even the kli is more than the shear, because it's tefillo. I mean, it's like zeres hakosov. It's tafel. What does that mean? It's tefillah. How are we supposed to understand that? So I'm going to bother you because I want to jump right now to beginning no-tell. It's interesting. Rashi does not, in Perek HaMatzniah, Rashi does not explain it. Rashi waits to no-tell to explain what the sugya, how to explain that sugya. So I don't know why Rashi usually tells things earlier rather than later, all the time. But here Rashi waits until Perek no-tell to explain. The Gemara is asking why the kiss, which the child is wearing, the child is wearing this kiss around his neck. If I carry the child with the kiss, I'm chayev ala kiss. Says the Gemara, why? Why we see it says you take out a chai b'mita, you poter af ala mita. So why over here? So the Gemara explains that mita legabe chai botele, and kiss l'gabitina glovatale. So, I mean, what does that mean? Again, what's the definition? So Rashi says it's a yimamish yesodistika Rashi in trying to understand everything that's going on in the sugya of otzos begodim. is mito legabe chai miftale leos tfelelo. Why? 3 words. Shahare tzorichla. You need it. It serves it. It serves it on some purpose. It's needed for the purpose. In other words, you can't carry it any other way. You're carrying the chai b'mita because there's no other way. Somebody needs to carry it out. You're pushing the child in the carriage. So you're putter on the carriage because you need the carriage to move the child. Carrying the child is not possible, and for whatever reason, and you need the carriage to put the child. And so therefore, you're motzi the child in the carriage, you're putter off a la carriage. Even though the carriage itself, if you took the carriage out, you'd roll it out, wouldn't make a difference, you'd be chayiv. Rishus hayachid, Rishus HaRabbim, Rishus HaRabbim, Rishus hayachid, Dalaram, Rishus HaRabbim wouldn't make a difference. We see this differentiation between what you're wearing and what you're carrying back on Kuf Mem Beis Amud Aleph at the top, where the Brisa explicitly differentiates between carrying someone who's wearing clothing and carrying someone who's carrying clothing. Because if you're carrying the person who's carrying the clothing, you're carrying the clothing also. That's where it wants. That's Tani Kavose David, the Tani Kavose Derava. That's really not our sugya. It's really not what we need to deal with. Okay, but Hamotzi Odom v'Kelev Olav. I'm sorry, a little bit high. Tani Kavose Derava is 2 lines higher. Hamotzi Kelim Mekupolim u'Munochim al Ksefo. V'Sandola v'Taboso biyodo means he's holding it in his hands. He's holding his shoes in his hands. He's not wearing his shoes. He's wearing his shoes in his hands. All right, he's going to be chayiv, even though he's carrying the human, and the human's carrying the kalim. Doesn't make a difference who you carry. It's all one together, and so therefore you're carrying everything together. Rashi talks about it earlier. Exactly what the sugi is about. How to explain it here. It's also not of significance to us right now. But in hoya maluvish behem, he's potter. Motzi Odom v'Kelev Olav v'Sandala b'Ragla v'Tavosam b'Yodav is potter. The ilum hotzian k'mushehei nibitayev. And so therefore we see that the clothing of the person that is serving the person is a tzorech to him, it's a shmishtamish, it's a shimush for him, he's using it for a specific purpose, it becomes bottle to the guf. Now, in order to compartmentalize everything, and I know there was a little bit of problem, discussion in that Dibritz Moshe between tachshit and malbush. So I want to break down all the items into 5 categories. And I think once you have these 5 categories, everything will fall into place, and you can now go through the sugya and understand what category does it belong to. So one category, I call them all tachshitim. They're all tachshitim because that's how the Shulchan Aruch describes it. And we'll see the Shulchan Aruch itself in a minute because it has significant new feature added in that we otherwise would not have known. But the factor is there are 5 categories. And they're all very different. Category 1 is a tachshit, is a malbush. 5 areas of tachshitim, which I would call tachshitim. All right, because the Shulchan Aruch calls it tachshit. So we're going to use it in a generic fashion, not in terms of tachshit being something that's for beautification necessarily, but tachshitim meaning 5 categories of items that serve a person. The first one is malbush. A malbush is something that protects you or keeps you warm. That we can understand it's a beged gomor. A beged gomor. That's why a tie is not a beged gomor. Tie doesn't keep you warm. A tie doesn't protect you. A tie is for a different purpose altogether, which we'll see in a moment. But a malbush, a jacket, shoes, a hat, these are malbushim gemurim. And again, you'll see in the beginning of Bamei Isha, the Gemara discusses certain items where there's a gzeira, a person will take that off. Take a look at the first Tosfos over there. Tosfos differentiates between tachshitim and malbushim. A malbush gomor, they weren't gozer on. But a malbush gomor is something that keeps you warm and something to wear for protection. That's called a malbush. Second category is tachshit lenoi. Tachshit lenoi is something that's being worn for beautification purposes. And so therefore a woman would be wearing jewelry. That's a tachshit lenoi. A man is wearing a tie. That's called tachshit lenoi. There's certain items that are tachshitim that are being worn for beautification purposes. And so therefore, tachshit lanoi is serving the person who's wearing it. And that's why it's tzorechlo. That's the Rashi. Shu tzorechlo. And therefore, he's not carrying masoi, carrying on Shabbos, being mavid dalaramshus HaRabbim, hotzah mirshus l'shus. You're allowed to walk mirshus hayochet to rishus HaRabbim. You're allowed to walk. And when you're wearing a jacket and you're going from rishus hayochet to rishus HaRabbim, you're walking. Hotzah means you're taking something separate from yourself, something that's not bottled to you. Something that's I'm wearing a pack on my back. The pack on my back is not serving me in terms of being a malbush nor a noi. It's not. I'm using it to carry what I need for some other purpose later on. And so therefore, if I wear my jacket and I carry it on my shoulder, or talis mukupelas al kseifa, or the case over here, or I'm carrying the shoes in my hand, so it's not serving me. I am carrying something separate from myself. I'm moving something separate from myself from one rishus to the other rishus. That's usher. Myself, I'm allowed to go from one rishus to another. Third category is tachshit latainik, something that's serving me in a way where it's making me more comfortable. In other words, so it's not keeping me warm, it's not protecting me, it's not abnoi, but it makes my walking easier while I'm walking. And I have only one example for such a case, and that is you wearing something in your shoe or some sort of a shoe support. You're wearing moch, the Gemara calls much, and you put something soft into the shoe so that your foot doesn't hurt as you're walking, that the shoe doesn't hurt your foot, and the leather doesn't rub on your foot, or in some sort of soft item so that you're able to walk comfortably, as long as it's in the shoe in a way where it's not going to fall off or fall out. There's nothing wrong with putting it. So therefore, with Dr. Scholl's insert, right? You find it comfortable to walk. Is that carry? You pull it in, you take it out. It's not part of the shoe. No one would say you're wearing it, are you? But you're allowed to wear it. Why? Because it's serving you. It's a tachshit latainig. It is serving you, and we call that wearing, and that's why it's bottled to the goof, and you're allowed to go out with it. There's no problem with that. No, suddenly things light up. In areas which you'd say, well, I'm allowed to, not allowed to. There's no shaila on this anymore because it's serving me while I'm walking, so therefore I'm allowed to go out with it. That's tachshit latainik. Tachshit l'refuah. Tachshit l'refuah is why am I allowed to wear a cast? Why am I allowed to wear my glasses? Because of tachshit l'refuah. That's why the reading glasses is not a mutter. Now it's become simple. Glasses that are tachshit l'refuah, hearing aid that I can need. There's a tachshit l'refuah that while I'm walking I should hear what's going on. That's bottled to the goof, because that's serving me while I'm walking. But if it's not serving me while I'm walking, then there's no reason for me to be able to wear it. Sunglasses is a different shaila. Sunglasses l'chora would be mutter under normal circumstances. The reason it's also because of gzera d'Rabbanan. Because of Shem Yavir Dalam Shusarabim, you'll take it off, put it in your pocket. But that's a Darabanan Tegisa. But while you're wearing it, it's serving you. It's protecting your eyes from the sun. While reading glasses are doing nothing for you. Yes, you're wearing it. You're wearing it. But what does that mean? You're wearing it. Wearing it doesn't mean that's a meaningless word in now. Now that I've explained it, you see it's a meaningless term. Just because it's hanging on my body, it's just like the pack on my back. If no one would say I'm wearing the pack on my back, I'm allowed to go with a backpack on Shabbos because I'm wearing it. And that's why wearing the reading glasses falls into the same category. And so therefore it's a tachshit l'refuah. Therefore there'd be no problem about wearing a cast, wearing glasses, a hearing aid. These are all tachshit l'refuah because they're serving me. They're serving me while I'm going from point A to point B. They're serving me. They're serving me, not serving me later. They're serving me now. And last but not least, I call the last category makel, for lack of a better word, something that supports me. While I'm walking, it supports me. It keeps me up. It doesn't let me fall down. Now, this is a sensitive area because what it basically is saying is that anything that supports me while I'm walking, min haTorah, again, we're dealing with Doraisis now. We're not dealing with we didn't deal with the Rabbanans yet. But min haTorah, I'm allowed to walk in the street with. So therefore, for that matter, so there would be no problem for someone to go out in his wheelchair. It's yotze. And the situation is that kitei yotze b'kavshalo. It's a mission for Rishus. So therefore, the person who can't walk is without a question allowed, if he can't walk, is allowed to go out in his wheelchair. Just like he's allowed to walk, but I'm not allowed to carry him. It's the Rabbanan of Chaynos Eitzatzmo. So I'm not allowed to push his wheelchair. I'm not allowed to push the carriage. But he wants to go out in the wheelchair himself. There's no problem going out in the wheelchair himself. Therefore, a person who can't walk is allowed to go out with crutches because it's serving him while he's walking, keeps him standing. And under normal circumstances, Minhat Torah, there would be no problem for a person to go out with a cane on Shabbos that he protected himself. The problem is now when we get to Isuri, those are the 5 areas of Tachshitim that Minhat Torah, there'd be no problem going out with. And that really defines everything right at that point. Now we have to categorize. That's category A. Category B are the D'Rabbanans. Along came Chazal and they said that anything that you might come to carry, it might fall off that you might come to carry, you're not allowed to wear on Shabbos. And it goes for anything. I mean, you don't need to. It's not like they came along and they said, you open up Shulchan Aruch and it says X, Y, Z. Chazal didn't come and make a list items that you might come to carry that you're not allowed to go out with. When they made the Gzeira, anything that's could be possibly you might come to carry, you're not allowed to go out with. That's the Gzeira. Now, what fits into the Gzeira? So, depending on the culture, depending on the situation, depending on where you are, that'll decide what that is. And so, therefore, that's why you have a machlokas by gloves. The Mechaber brings down 2 shitas. Rabbi Gaddis mentioned it before, but Mechaber brings on 2 shitas. So the first sheet in the Mechaber says that it's mutter to go with gloves. The second sheet says you're not allowed to go with gloves. Well, the difference is in what's it like if you're going out with gloves, and that probably will answer your PPE question also. Because if the problem is you might come to, the question is why you're wearing it. If you might wear it, you might come to shake hands and take it off when you shake hands. You're not allowed to wear it. If you're living in a place where there's the temperature in Siberia, where no one's going to walk through the street and take off the gloves, the big heavy gloves to shake hands in Siberia, or in Poland, or where the situation may be, because it's so freezing cold that nobody takes off their gloves to shake hands in the street. And if you're living in an area where people do take off their gloves to shake hands in the street, you see during the week, someone's wearing gloves during the week and he goes and meets somebody in the street and he takes off today's environment, nobody shakes hands with anybody, but you take off your gloves to shake hands. So you're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. That's plain and simple. Anything that is a Gzeira Shemi Avi Renta Rishus HaRabbim, you can end up walking with it. And when the Rishus HaRabbim, if it's that, unless it's that freezing cold that no one's taking their gloves off. Well, the PPE question that you asked, I don't know who that was, but could possibly be answered in the same way. What are we talking about? We're talking about someone who is wearing his gloves now because he's afraid to come in contact with anything and anybody, and he's not going to take his gloves off. Is that what we're talking about? Or we're talking about a situation where you're wearing it because you want to have them for when you get to shul, but now in the street, you're not going to need them because no one's going to, you're not going to. So therefore, you may take them off while you're in the street and walk with it. The mask is another interesting shaila that tied into all of this, but let me leave that for others to deal with, because I've had, I'll tell you, I just recently had a situation with someone who was in the neighborhood and told me when there's a place where there's no Erev, he doesn't wear a mask. Why? He's a big machmir. He doesn't wear a mask because he already has antibodies, so therefore he's not going to get sick. And he's only wearing it because of Marasayan. And since it's Marasayan, he's not really a bigot. And it's not a, but it is a bigot. And that was part of the issues that we spoke about earlier. If it's a bigot for some people, it's a bigot for everyone. And so therefore it doesn't make a difference. That you don't happen to need it. I don't happen to need my jacket, but you need my jacket. And I know that that I have a jacket, you don't have one. So I'm going to bring my jacket to you by wearing it. Some fush halach and shulchan aruch, it's mutter. It's a fush gemara that it's mutter. You're allowed to carry, you're allowed to wear it, even though your need is for somebody else. As long as I'm wearing it, it's mutter. And if I'm wearing it, it doesn't make a difference what my kavana is anymore. The only shaila is that Chazal, there's a shaila about if something that's a tachshit, a lishtamish bo, it has two purposes and it's a tachshit, and it's also lishtamish bo, it's a machlokas haposkim. The Shulchan Aruch brings down two shitas. We're makel, but the machloka that if it's letachshit, lishtamish bo, it may be a marasayan that people will say you're using it for lishtamish bo and you're not really wearing it. But not on begodim gemurim, that doesn't work that way. So therefore, there's no problem wearing if you're wearing a mask in the street. Exactly what the situations we'll see in a second. The only thing is I want to show you, if you don't mind showing me, putting up the Shulchan Aruch.
Rabbi, since Guy and Yitzchak opened the issue here with the masks, and we have received several questions, since that's not his focus at the moment, because that's Koruch and other things.
Yes.
We will be discussing it separately. Rabbi, thank you for laying the foundation for this.
Okay. So what? Very good. So what we're going to do is, of course, well, that's only because of the PPE short question that came earlier. But in Zion, okay, you don't have the beginning of Zion. So let me just. Here. Okay. The beginning of Zion is like this. Kol hayotzi b'davar. It really works backwards. Oh, you have it over here. Kol hayotzi b'davar she'eno tachshit. So you're going out with something that's not a tachshit. The definition of tachshit, I mentioned 5. Kol hayotzi b'davar she'eno tachshit ve'eno derech malbush. And it's not a derech, and it's eno derech malbush ve'otzio k'derech shugin lahotzio so davar chayev. Now there's an interesting addition that's added here. And then it goes on to tell us that kol tachshichu rafui, that can fall off, b'kal lipo, also lotzisbo, v'im yotza potter. Now, I just want to, an interesting aside, because I heard this myself. When I was younger, I remember hearing as a child, a whole shaila once upon a time. It was a short period of time, I think recently, or maybe it's still going on. I'm not into this, I'm not into Bacher styles these days, but feathers in the hat. I remember as a child that there was a shmua that you weren't allowed to wear feathers in the hat. Okay, what do I know? I was 5, 6 years old at the time, I heard. I remember hearing it. When I was older, I was in the car with Rosh Yeshiva Zeichat Tzadik Kodesh Livrocha, with a Rav that was driving the Shiva. I was in the car together. We were in the time together. He had picked up the Shiva to talk to him. And he asked him, while I was sitting in the back of the car, and he asked him about the feather in the hat. That's the shaila he asked him. And the Shiva told him that originally when they asked him the shaila, he thought that the feather was, he didn't know the feather was so tucked in that it had the bottom tucked into the band. And he thought it was easy, the feather could fall out and the person might pick it up, even a feather, might pick it up and carry it. And so therefore, when they first asked him about the feather on the hat, he said it was osir. But he says now he knows it's not true because it's stuck in, it doesn't fall out. It does. So he says it's definitely 100% mutter. Mamish, this case is called shachshish rafi she'efshelo bekal lipo also lotzisbo. And it doesn't mean, it depends what the mitzias is. Depends what the mitzias is. Vim yotza potter. Okay. And so therefore it goes on to things that a woman might take off, and tachshitim, that's really in Siman Shin Gimel. And so, but here the Mechaber adds an interesting tanai. Not that just that it's a malbush, but it's v'otzio k'derech sherogilin lahotzi osadover. It's derech malbush. That it has to be kol davar she'eno shel tachshit ve'eno derech. It's called davar she'eno tachshit ve'eno derech malbush. Ve'eno, that's the key word. Ve'eno derech malbush. Of course, if he took it out derech malbush, then he didn't take. If he took it out derech, even if it's not a tachshit, but he took it out derech malbush, then it's klachiyad. But he adds in this concept of the eno derech malbush. Now we could say that the eno derech malbush is only nogeya to the iser chiyuv of hotzah, or we can also say that the malbush has to be derech malbush, and that there's a requirement, and that's where you see that there's an aspect of derech malbush along with the malbush itself, and that takes us into. That's why you have that machlokas that we had in you had that, not machlokas, you had that conversation. If you want to go to, I'd like to go back to the Samach Beis, and then I'll deal with some of the questions and come back to it, because I want to deal with the Derech Malbush part of it, because that's a very significant piece. I did mention that in Siman Mem Daled, the Rashiva gives 3 svaris into why you're not allowed to, why Malbushim are permitted. Because he deals with it from a different perspective. He's not dealing with it what's mutter for otzah. He's talking about how Chazal set up the gzeras of gzeras shem yavir and daled ramas and div sholfa l'machavia and a sholfa if you might come to carry it. So without going through Siman Mem Daled, but in Siman Nun, the Shiva goes through the concept of what Derech Malbush is. He gives 2 svaras for Derech Malbush. I gave only one of them there to show that it's a complicated aspect. What is defined as a Malbush and what is Derech Malbush is not a simple concept. If you have so that's where, right there is where all the conflict is going to come in. And I'll discuss some of those issues in a moment. But I think it's important to see the Gemara says that Derech Malbush is defined. Anything that's mutter for one group of people is mutter for another group of people. That the Gemara assumes. And the Gemara brings that. Now, Rav Yosef had asked, Haroim yotzim besakin v'lo roim bilvad amru ela kol adam ela shel darkon shel haroim lo tzis besakin. What is he asking the question on? He wants to know why, if a man goes out with women's clothing, a man goes out with a woman's tachshit, kol midi the chazi leish lo chazi leisha, or midi the chazi leisha lo chazi leish. What is considered a woman's malbush, what's considered a woman's tachshit, and basically the Mishnah is that we're talking about a tabash yesh lo chosam. A woman can't go out with a man's ring, and a man can't go out with a woman's ring. And not only that, the Gemara says if you go out and you even wear it, you're wearing it, you're chayiv. Why are you wearing it chayiv? Why isn't that klach yad? So the Gemara explains, because when you go out, your wife gave you her diamond ring to take to the jeweler to do something with to fix it. Something's loose. She wants to fix it. So you need a good place to put it so that you don't lose it. It's not a big item. So you'll stick it on one of your fingers. It may not fit perfectly, but you'll stick it on one of your fingers to keep it. That's a safer place you can keep it. You can stick it in your pocket and go find it later. Once it's on your finger, you know where it is. Good. It only goes up to the first knuckle. Good. Okay. That's as far as it goes. But that's how you carry it. And a woman will wear a man's ring the same way, and a woman will wear a woman's ring the same. That's why you carry. That's why it's called derech hotzah. It's not even klach yad. So therefore, a man wearing a woman's ring, a woman wearing a man's ring is chayiv. Why is that? Maser of Yosef, Aram Yosef of Asakin, Aram Bilvad. And on that, the Gemara answers, so Alma of Yosef, Gasavar al Ula Noshim Amfnei Atzmei. That's the key. And what does that mean? So why is it, is this a case of Batal Daitus Adam? That's what the Rashiva deals with. How do we understand this? It's not the derech malbush of a man to wear a woman's ring. It's not the derech malbush of a woman to wear a man's ring. And so therefore, a man wearing a woman's tachshit and a woman wearing a man's tachshit, or clothing for that matter, it may even exist, may be considered carrying, unless it's klach yad. So that's where you see the big discussion in the Rashiva has in terms of defining what is derech malbush. What is derech malbush? So let's talk about a few situations. One situation is the Gemara says clearly, "Hayotze b'talis mekupelas al kseifav is chayiv chatas." Take a talis. So even though you may want to wear the talis in shul, just like you want to wear the gartel in shul, and their talis that the Gemara Chazal is talking about doesn't even really mean talis mitzvah. It means everyday clothing, everyday article of clothing, but you wear it wrapped around your neck. That's not the way you normally wear it, but that's the way you might carry it. So you're chayiv chatas. And so therefore, our talesim is problematic. So if you wear it in the normal way that you wear it, Okay, so it's the one normal way you go out, normal way you wear it, there's no problem. But sometimes people find themselves in the wintertime or in the summertime, even worse, and they want to put their tallis under their jacket. They don't want to wear the tallis on top of the jacket. Right? I mean, it's famous that Rabbi Yaakov held that you shouldn't go with the tallis in the street. But I don't know if everybody held that way, but Lamaisa, so people wear the tallis under their coat, people wear the tallis under their jacket. But the problem is, how are you wearing it? If you fold it up in a way that it's not the normal way that it's worn, you're going to be carrying it. If it's covered around your shoulders is carrying it. I just know one guy who wrapped it up and tied it around himself underneath his jacket. He tied it, or he just folded it up and tied it around himself and came to shul that way. Because he's wearing. But it's a Moshe Gemara that wearing it that way is carrying, and if it could, it may be klachiyad of you wearing, for us to wear it that way, and it may be only chayav chatas if it was Rishus HaRabbim d'oraisa. Yeah. So it's okay. So maybe only nisa d'rabbanan, which is chayav misa. So and that would also it's klachiyad. I'm sorry, it's klachiyad to be a nisa d'rabbanan, but still also to carry. It's still chil Shabbos. And so therefore it's important to understand. So the question now, the Gemara also mentioned marzev. Marzev is you don't pull it up completely, but you lift it up in a way where it's partially bent. And so that the bottom of it is not really necessary. And so that's an Issa D'Rabbanan marzev. It's not chayav chatas, it's also kain marzev. The Gemara says, Gemara doesn't really, there are no pictures to explain to you what marzev is. So that brings us to an interesting machlokas between Rosh Yeshiva Tzaddik Levrocha and Rabbi Aaron Kotler. If you're allowed to go out in the summertime with your shirt with your sleeves folded, Rosh Yeshiva held it was usher. Now, I don't know. I personally don't understand why, but he held it was usher. And as many times as I tried to bring him riots that their Shita said not that way, he just brushed me off. Like that right off the top. But he held that folding your sleeves, when you're folding it because it's just warm, is hotzah. You're not allowed to carry it because when you fold the sleeve, this part of the shirt is you're saying, I don't need this part of the shirt, and that's the Gemara of Marzev, and he held it was usher. But Rabbi Aaron held it was not usher, and so therefore it was okay. But it's that you.
What was Rabbi Aaron's svar, if I may ask?
I don't know. Honestly. I only know from Pia Shmua. You'll have to ask for Malkiel why the svara was, but I'm assuming what I think the reason is that there's a Beis Yosef and I'm Elio Rabbah. That's why I wanted to show Shiva once that as long as you put your arms through it and you're wearing it derech malbush normally, that even if it's folded over, it's not a problem. I mean, that's what I believe the answer is. But I don't know because I certainly never had an opportunity to ask, and I never spoke to anybody from Lakewood to ask. But I just knew that he held his mutter. I honestly, and I think I have enough rayas that it should be mutter, but I don't know if that's the reason Rav Aaron held it was mutter. But I wouldn't do it because Shiva said it was usher, and I'm not. You take a look at Dibros Moshe, and there's so much involved in all of this in terms of derech malbush. I'm not mixing in, putting my head in the middle of those mountains. But the Maisa, okay, so this is even it hasn't changed. The style to wear sleeves rolled up hasn't really changed that much in the last 50 years.
Let me ask you a shaila, which is the gaya. If you're walking in water and you're not allowed to pick up your bottom of your pants.
That's the halacha. Okay, so lifting it up in a way where it's not folded up, that's where it's mutter. I know the Shiva held, for example, just to tell you, there was it spoke to him about. I mean, so I don't know if it's well known, not well known. The Shiva held that you don't have to wear tzitzis out. He held that the understanding of the Chavetz Chaim is the Magen Avram that the Chavetz Chaim quotes is misunderstood. Let's leave it at that. The Shiva held that you don't have to wear your tzitzis out. Okay. So there's that what the folding that's the style. Yeah, okay. That doesn't mean anything, honestly. Rashiva didn't hold that meant anything. Because he said I suppose today maybe because people don't wear short sleeve shirts, and so therefore they wear the shirt that they wear it that way in the wintertime too, fold it over. I don't know. I'm not, again, I'm not into Bacha styles, but I don't know if that would suffice according to the Shiva's definition of folded sleeves to be considered. You have to, again, if you hold that there's no din of beged kafel when your hands are through the sleeves, then that would be a reason. But if you could hold that it still has a din of beged kafel, why is it, it's folded over? I know, no. Yeshiva guys do not wear short sleeves. I know that. Will they wear folded over, not just in the summertime? Will they also do it in the wintertime? That's the question. Do your boys wear their sleeves folded over like that in the wintertime too? I don't know about your boys. So, I mean, I don't know if that'll answer everybody, but that would be okay. So I'll get to the hood of the Shinnecoat. That's all part of it. That's a slightly different area. Okay, that's not a problem, the hood of the Shinnecoat. Once you have the whole beged, it's not a problem. You can, even if the belt on your jacket is hanging down, that's also not a problem. It's also all connected to one thing. As long as it's not a problem that you might fall off and that's not a folded over item. That's all one garment. Here you have, and that's the way it's worn. Here, the Shiva held that wasn't that way. I just want to go back. I want to get to a couple of the shilas that I dealt with, because I don't want to, because I want to get back to my paper bags and my plastic bags at the end. I need to deal with those plastic bags. In terms of what Rabbi Gaddis mentioned about the plastic hats, about the hat covers, Atzuli Tinuf is not a machlokas what Atzuli Tinuf is. If anything, again, back to my original explanation. Anything that's serving me is mutter. Anything that's not serving me is usher. Doesn't make a difference how I'm wearing it. It's not serving me, it's usher. So therefore, for example, if they once upon a time women they used to have these silver, and so they had these silver cases that they wore around their neck, which was a tachshit. But in the tachshit, they carried their glasses. So that's again the same halacha. Hamotzi pochas mikashir bekli is poter afal kli. But if you carry a shear of a kli in a tachshit, you're chayev even on the tachshit, because it becomes you're carrying the tachshit. So the halacha in Shulchan Aruch is such that that if the woman wears this silver case and she wears her glasses inside, she's carrying. That's carrying. So it doesn't make a difference if you call it wearing or not. I can't explain Rosh Shlomo Zalman. I'm not here. I'm not going to try. And of course, I didn't. In terms of what his svar is and how he explains it, it's all connected. It's how he understands bittul. Remember, these are all areas where by Gedolei Yisrael they have a mahalach in whatever halacha they're dealing with, and it's not just we're only seeing the last statement. You're reading the last paragraph of an Igros Moshe that goes on for 15 pages. So that's not, so I can't tell you the last paragraph of a Minchas Shleima where it comes to a conclusion, and I can say I can explain it. I can't. I don't understand what that means, that you can put the rain hat on top of a hat, and because it fits, it's okay. I have no idea what that even means. I know the Shiva held that it was usher because it's a Atzuli Tinuf. Plain and Pashut, you go through the halachas of Atzuli Tinuf. It's simple enough to see it from that perspective. Atzuli Tinuf is carrying. Whenever something is being used to protect my clothing and doesn't protect me, it's carrying. I will tell you the Rav Henkin held the rain hats were mutter, but not because of the fact that they fit directly on. I asked him myself. I asked her if I was in a house by Rav Henkin Sofyomov, and I asked him why he held, because remember, according to what we're saying now, it doesn't, Atzuli Tinuf means it has to be serving, it's only serving the clothing, not me. And the rain hat seems to only be serving the clothing. Unto which he said to me, quote unquote, it says, Azoivi Galashes. Now you have to know Rav Henkin, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha. He was a big mafunik. He held, you weren't allowed to kiss a Torah, Sefer Torah, anytime, ever.
Who are you quoting, Yitzchak? I'm sorry. Who are you quoting?
Rav Henkin, Rav Yosef Elio Henkin.
Rav Henkin, okay.
Okay, so I used to go to his home, and I asked him a number of shilas, and so he said that the rain hat was mutter not because it fit directly on the hat. He held it was the same as galoshes, because he held that However, he understood that the rain hat was protecting the head too. And so galoshes, just like rubbers protect your feet, and as you mentioned before, it's 100% true. The Shiva says it explicitly that way. And anybody who's ever worn knows that it keeps your feet dry. The rain doesn't get in through your shoes, and it keeps your feet warm, and it does all the good things that Malbushim do, and so therefore it's serving you, not just your shoes. So, but the hat, on a felt hat, if you're wearing a felt hat, so I don't think most people would say that they know a difference between with the rain hat and without the rain hat on the felt hat. It's the felt hat protects your head. Again, you had mentioned if it's a driving rain and the rain goes through the hat and it gets on your head, okay, maybe that situation would be mutter. Like when I asked the Rosh Yeshiva the following question. I asked the Rosh Yeshiva, are you allowed to wear a rain hat on a straw hat? What's a straw hat? We can talk about that separately. But I asked him that in a period, at a time when straw hats still existed, I asked him, are you allowed to wear a rain hat on a straw hat? And he said to me, definitely. So you have all these truvas about rain hats that it's usher. He said that you're allowed to wear a rain hat on a straw hat. I asked him, what about Marasayan? He brushed me off on that. There's no Marasayan. Who told you to think that he's wearing a regular hat? He can be wearing a straw hat. Okay. But the fact is that you see that the whole purpose was that on a straw hat, the rain goes through and it protects you too. So anything that goes around your face, around your head, that's why women's rain hats were never a problem, because they covered around the entire person. And so therefore, that was never an issue. Okay, so now let me talk about one more subject because it's important for what we're talking about now. And that is, I didn't put it into my Mekomos, but everybody knows it's that in terms of wearing watches, I mean only on Shabbos, not during the week. That's a shaila that you can ask. You can ask Reb Chaim if you're allowed to wear watches during the week. But for those people who are not to wear watches, are you allowed to wear a watch on Shabbos? So if it's a tachshit, in other words, it's a gold watch, and so serving as a tachshit. So I don't, except for Reb Chaim, who holds you're not allowed to wear watches ever, but there's no problem. I know I spoke to Reb Nissen Alfred about it. He told me that his shver, or Scheinberg Zekatzadik Levrocha, did not hold that you're allowed to wear watches on Shabbos, held that you're not allowed to wear watches on Shabbos, unless they were tachshitim. He held if they were gold watches and they were tachshitim, that you were allowed to watch, but a regular, simple watch that is not a tachshit, he held was usher. So Shiva held it was mutter. Not only held that watches were mutter, if you take it, I didn't go through the Chol Tshuva, there was once a point in time that women, all through the, anybody in the 50s, you may remember that your grandmother maybe used to wear a handkerchief around her wrist. They used to wear these colored handkerchiefs around their wrists, and they used them as handkerchiefs, but they had them around their wrists. They went out with that. Now, was that mutter? Or men used to go with handkerchiefs around their neck. And so the Shiva held that was mutter. He held it was not a problem. He actually, again, he brought a raya from that same Mishnah. He brought a raya from a Mishnah about Hotzaz Begodim by Deleka. Again, that's a shaila of Shemi Avir and Dalan HaRabbim. If it's loose, then it might fall off. I mean, what do you mean? It's broken, it's going to fall off, and if it's loose, then you might pick it up and put it in your pocket. So that's a gzera, Shemi Avir and Dalan HaRabbim. That's going to be also. Anything that's a gzera, anything that's loose that might fall off, you may stick in your pocket because you forgot it's Shabbos for the moment, would be also in Rishus, in a Carmelis or Rishus.
Let's go back to the watches.
So, but the watches, the Shiva held the watches are mutter. Okay, that's Rabbi Rav Scheinberg, Rav Pinchas Scheinberg.
Any type of a watch for a man.
Okay, so Shiva held any type of, he has a tshuva on its own subject, because he held that anything that covered the guf, that was this, again, derech malbush, okay? The malbush and derech malbush, that malbush is, and Shiva held that was his shita, and go through the dibros, you can see it. Anything that covered the guf serves as a din of a malbush. And so therefore he held that the watch had a din of a malbush covered the groove. The handkerchief covered around your neck and a din of a malbush.
Not because of
Not
a
a
tachshit.
tachshit. It was not a tachshit. It was a malbush. It was also could also be a tachshit. If it was a silver watch, a gold watch, it was also a tachshit. But he held that it had a din of a malbush, and a malbush is mutter, and it was mutter be derech to Torah's malbush. That's how he held. Now he also held it was called derech malbush too. Of course, that's the normal way. That was something I never could understand about wearing a handkerchief around the neck. Why is that called derech malbush? The fact that women wear it or wore handkerchiefs around their wrists, that was something that they did wear normally. They would wear it. They would wear it to a wedding. They would have them around there. And when they went out, they had these types of handkerchiefs that were of they also wore veils and they wore handkerchiefs and they wore hats. That's all. It was a different style, 50s and early 60s. But a handkerchief around the neck always bothered me. But Rosh held it was mutter, and he said it's a Mefurish Gemara. Mefurish Gemara. People wore it around their neck when they went out, and they used it to wipe their faces. You can take a look over there by Hotzos Begotten by Dleika. So he held it was mutter. So therefore, it's important to understand that when I'm going to discuss now, it's very hard to answer this question well. And I think that people, though, have to know that it is a serious shaila that needs to be dealt with. It's a serious shaila that you have to ask yourself exactly if this is mutter. And what I'm talking about is those are the paper bags, the plastic bags, the garbage bags. And the point I'm making is as follows. People, Roim wore certain garments in the street. There's a whole shaila. Why is it mutter for me? I'm not a shepherd. But once it's mutter for one group of people, it's mutter for all people. Right? And so therefore Roim to low. So therefore Haroim yotzim b'sakin. The sakin here doesn't mean they wore a sack. They wore a sack-like material that was made as a garment that they wore in the fields. They wore denim. That's what they wore. It would be the same thing as I would say the farmers go out with denim, with denim pants, with dungarees. Am I allowed to wear dungarees on Shabbos? That's how Royan Yotzim Besakin. Royan Bilvad, and Lakol Adam Shaleh Eladakin Sharon Lotzis Besakin. Only the farmers used to go out that way. But people in construction used to go that way. But it's okay, mutter for a Jew for on Shabbos if he has to go out that way. It's not considered hotzah. It may not be covered Shabbos, but it's not hotzah. But plastic bags, garbage bags, going out with tablecloths, going with a tablecloth. That's not derech malbush. Not by it's not you can't even say a nashim am thing. Name. There is some am somewhere that goes out that way. So it's hard to say that that's called a derech malbush. I mean, it's hard to say. It's impossible to say it's called derech malbush. How can anyone say it's derech malbush? The only question I have now is, well, once I'm going out with something, and that was the lashon in the dibros. Now remember, I'm not going to extrapolate from a svara in a dibros that on one side of a shaila, and where there's another shaila, there's a tzad beis from another tzad to see it differently. That's why I'm saying I'm not going to resolve this question myself. I'm certainly not going to tell you that anybody holds one way or the other. I'm telling you, you have to ask a shaila because it is a major shaila. If it's mutter to go out with a garbage bag or with a tablecloth, that plastic tablecloth. Now, if it's made as a poncho, I know that the Rabbi Gottesman had mentioned the plastic ponchos that you get at Niagara Falls. Those I believe are derech malbush. They're made to be worn that way, and people wear them that way. And the plastic raincoats that you buy, plastic ponchos that are bought, plastic ponchos with a flick plastic, and you wear and they're made that way. They're made to be worn that way. But if you take a plastic tablecloth, or you take a plastic bag and you put it over yourself. Now, anybody walking through the street wearing a plastic bag, no one said, "Oh, that looks normal." Of course, it doesn't look normal. Oh, but so of course it's raining. You're not afraid you're going to take it off and going to be mavidal HaRabbim. What happens if it stops raining? So if you're wearing a raincoat and it stops raining, you're wearing a rain poncho and it stops raining. So there's no problem. You'll continue walking home with it. You're not embarrassed to walk with it. But anything that you'd be embarrassed wearing, you're not allowed to wear. You're not allowed to wear in Rishus HaRabbim either. You're not allowed to wear that in a Carmelis either. How is that possible that, so even for some reason you may come to, say that a plastic bag may be okay to be worn, but now you have a problem. It's what happens when it stops raining? So they gave the ponchos are 100% fine. I have no problem with ponchos. Ponchos at the what they gave out at the Siyam Hashas when it was raining. That's again, those are made to be worn that way. Plastic bags are not. You're wearing a plastic bag in the street. Who would continue walking in the street if it stopped raining? Because you may take it off and put it on the ground because it's Shabbos. But if you
Lulay that
excuse me,
body, it protects the body also. Why should it not be similar to the galoshes or the?
Why shouldn't it be similar to the galoshes? So again, galoshes are derech malbush. I'm saying that's again malbush, derech malbush. Those are the two. That's exactly why I want to. That's why I wanted that. But
I'm saying Rav Henkin's psak on the plastic rain hats.
The plastic rain hats. He said because that's the way it's made to be worn that way. It was made that way, and it's worn.
But it's just to protect the hat. So therefore,
no. So if Rav Henkin held, it also protected the head.
Oh, so why isn't a piece of plastic that also protects you?
The plastic bag is protecting me. That is not a question. I have no shaila about that. The plastic. That's not a tzulitin of shaila. It's certainly protecting me. The question is that called derech malbush? Derech malbush. Remember, a man can't go out with a woman's item. A woman can go with a man's item. That's what it said. Because not sure I'm answering. It's not derech malbush. Question is, that's the shailam. I don't want to pass in the shailam. I'm not trying to pass the shailam. I'm going to tell you that I asked Reb David. I asked Reb David Feinstein the shailam, and he would not answer it. I'll tell you what he said to me. I asked him, you're allowed to go out with a garbage bag in the rain in a Rishus HaRabbim or in a Carmelis on Shabbos. And he said to me, quote unquote, only if it's derech malbush. You hear that? He didn't say to me yes, and he would normally say yes, no, maybe, I don't know. That's not what he answered me. He answered me only if it's derech malbush. Reb David, you have to understand about Reb David. He answered questions. He was lahav. I don't know if you can even say lahavdil. It was like a Rashi. When he answered questions, sometimes I wish I taped everything I asked him, because I would be sitting in shir and I'd be taping the shir, the Gemara, more Rashi Taisus. I'd be listening. The next day I'd listen to the tape over again. I hear things I never heard of before. Just minor variations, nuances, and what he said and how he said it. It was so significant. He was so careful about how he said his words. He said to me, if it's okay if it's derech malbush. That's how he answered it. How do I understand that teretz? I understand that teretz is he wasn't taking a stand one way or the other. If it's derech malbush, it's okay. It's not derech malbush, it's not okay. If goyim are wearing garbage cans to protect themselves from a sudden downpour, that doesn't make it derech malbush. It means everybody who has derech malbush would mean that you would wear it not from a sudden. You wear it in regular. You'd wear it in a normal situation, not because you don't have anything else. So you took it. For example, the Gemara says mafurish boxes. Taking up. Put a box over your head. It's aser l'choladeus. It's a mafurish Gemara. You take a box, put a hole in the top of the box, put it over your head, and walk out with a box. You don't want to wear a box on Shabbos. It's aser. That's the Gemara of Royim, the Gemara in Royim Nedarim. I didn't give you that Gemara in Nedarim because I didn't think it was necessary. The Gemara says, let it go out with a box. Because nobody.
What about this question? You're walking and there's a sudden downpour, and you take your jackets in the summer and you pull it over your head like this.
Okay, that's if you want to know, that's a Yerushalmi. That's where Rabbi Tarfon did it. Rabbi Tarfon did that. He put it over his head like that. That's what it says. Rabbi Tarfon did it that way.
Is that derech lavusha?
As long as you're wearing it in a normal way and you have your hands through it and you put your hands over it, it's all. That's all not that. But if you took I always question what happens if I.
But why according to Moshe? Why is this like Yitzchak? Why according to Moshe is this better then short sleeves rolled up.
Of course, in the short sleeves, it's what I don't need. This is what I do need.
Ah, okay.
So he says he would say that on what I folded up is what I don't need, and it's a masa on what I don't need.
Good.
Okay, let's. I think I've covered a lot of the issues, and I'm certainly nowhere near covering all the issues. And obviously, you're going to be dealing with masks also. So, but I just wanted to give. But in terms of a general outline, a rule of thumb of what's considered a malbush, what's not considered a malbush, what the categories of malbush, I think is important to keep in mind, and also to understand that the Xeris D'Rabbanan that have to be also kept in mind on that level. But the derech malbush is where, as they say in Chinese, Dorten is the Hund pogrom. That's the issue that has to be dealt with to probably come to a resolution of this halacha. And I'm not going to be the one to be able to answer that question for sure.